On a bleak, gray day, a man named Jack trekked down a desolate trail. A blanket of pure white snow and ice stretched to the horizon, a stark and unforgiving landscape. This was his first winter in Alaska, and despite his heavy clothing and fur boots, a bone-chilling cold seeped into him, making him deeply uncomfortable. Jack was heading to a camp near Henderson Creek, where his friends were waiting. He anticipated reaching them by 6 that evening. Just as darkness would fully descend, he pictured a warm fire and a hot meal, a comforting thought that pushed him forward. A large, gray animal, a crossbreed of dog and wolf, followed silently at his heels. The dog, more attuned to the wild, disliked the severe cold, sensing the inherent danger of traveling in such extreme weather. Jack pressed on, his path leading him to a frozen stream known as Indian Creek. He began to traverse the snow-covered ice, a direct route to Henderson Creek and his companions. With every step, his eyes scanned the surface before him. At one point, he stopped abruptly, carefully navigating around a section of the stream. He knew that an underground spring flowed beneath the ice there, making it treacherously thin. A misstep could plunge him into the frigid water, a potentially fatal mistake. Wet boots in this cold meant his feet would turn to ice in moments, and he could freeze to death. Around noon, Jack decided to pause for lunch. He removed the glove from his right hand, unbuttoned his jacket and shirt, and retrieved his bread and meat. The entire action took less than 20 seconds, but it was long enough for his fingers to begin to freeze. He smacked his hand against his leg repeatedly until a sharp, stinging pain returned, then quickly pulled his glove back on. He built a small fire, starting with twigs and gradually adding larger pieces of wood. He sat on a snow-dusted log, savoring his meal and the precious warmth of the flames for a few minutes. Then he rose and resumed his journey along the frozen stream. A half-hour later, disaster struck. In a place where the snow appeared solid, the ice gave way. Jack's feet plunged into the icy water, soaking his legs up to his knees. Anger flared within him. The accident would delay his arrival. He now had to build another fire, this time to dry his clothes and boots. He moved towards a cluster of small trees laden with snow. Tucked within their branches were remnants of dry grass and wood, deposited by floodwaters from earlier in the year. He cleared a space on the snow under one of the trees and laid down several large pieces of wood as a base. On top, he arranged some grass and dry branches. Removing his gloves, he struck a match and lit the kindling. He carefully nurtured the fledgling flame, adding more wood as it grew stronger. At 60 degrees below zero, a man with wet feet could not afford to fail in his first attempt to build a fire. As he worked, he could feel the cold intensifying its assault. While walking, his circulation had kept his body warm, but now, stationary, the cold was driving his blood deeper into his core. His wet feet were frozen solid. He couldn't feel his fingers and his nose was numb. A chilling sensation spread over his entire body. However, his fire was now burning brightly. He was safe. He sat under the tree, his thoughts drifting to an old-timer in Fairbanks who had warned him that no man should travel alone in the Yukon when the temperature dropped to 60 below. Yet here he was. He had faced an accident, alone, and had saved himself. He had built a fire. Those old-timers are weak, he thought. A real man could travel alone. If he just stayed calm, everything would be fine. His boots were encased in ice, the laces frozen as hard as steel. He would need to cut them with his knife. As he leaned back against the tree to retrieve it, a sudden, heavy mass of snow cascaded down. His slight movement had been enough to dislodge the snow from the tree's branches. Jack was in shock. He stared at the spot where his life-saving fire had been. The old-timer was right. If he had a companion, he wouldn't be in this predicament. The other man could build the fire. Now, it was up to him to build it again, and this time he could not fail. He gathered more wood and reached for his matches, but his fingers were frozen stiff, unable to grasp them. He began to beat his hands against his legs with all his might. After a while, a faint feeling returned. He reached for the matches again, but the numbing cold quickly stole the life from his fingers and the matches scattered onto the snow. He tried to pick one up, but his fingers wouldn't obey. He pulled on his glove and struck his hand against his leg again. Then, taking off both gloves, he painstakingly picked up all the matches, cupping them in both hands. He scraped them along his leg, and they burst into flame. He held the blazing matches to a piece of wood, but soon the smell of burning flesh filled his nostrils, followed by excruciating pain. He opened his hands, and the matches fell into the snow, their flame extinguished in a puff of gray smoke. Jack looked up and saw the dog watching him. An idea formed in his mind. He would kill the dog and thrust his hands into its warm body. Once feeling returned to his fingers, he could build another fire. He called to the dog, but it sensed the danger in his voice and backed away. He called again, and this time the dog crept closer. Jack reached for his knife, forgetting that his fingers could not bend. He couldn't kill the dog because he couldn't hold the knife. The terrifying reality of his impending death washed over him. He leaped to his feet and began to run. The motion started to make him feel better. Maybe if he ran fast enough, he could warm his feet and reach his friends at Henderson Creek. They would save him. It was a strange sensation, running without feeling his feet touch the ground. He stumbled and fell several times before deciding to rest. As he lay in the snow, he noticed he was no longer shivering. He couldn't feel his nose, fingers, or feet, yet he felt surprisingly warm and comfortable. He knew then that he was going to die. Well, he thought, I might as well take it like a man. There are worse ways to die. Jack closed his eyes and drifted into the most peaceful sleep he had ever known. The dog sat, waiting. After a while, it moved closer and caught the scent of death. The animal threw back its head and let out a long, mournful cry to the cold, distant stars in the black sky. Then, it turned and ran towards Henderson Creek, where it knew there was food and a warm fire.